How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday morning, 11:15 a.m. California time. August 10th, 2025 is the date here. Latest activity shows a 2.8 earthquake aftershock there from a 6.1 earthquake striking the western Turkey area this morning. Just about an hour and a half or so ago, this 6-pointer came in. Pretty strong quake there. It's off of the plate boundary. It is away from any major populated regions. Looks like about 20 or 30 miles or so to the southeast of this region here. But notice the shake alert here showing potential issues when it comes to estimated economic losses and potential fatalities there. It did look like there was some pretty strong shaking being reported out there for sure from this 6.1. It's pretty much in an area. I want to show you guys the historical model. By the way, here's today's quake. Remember those big 7-pointers here last year or so? This earthquake here. Actually, it was 2023. Had a number of large earthquakes there, including a couple 7s out there back in February of 2023. So that was along the plate boundary. This activity here, located off the plate boundary, but obviously within a zone that can get some big earthquakes out here. It does look like there was one of a 7.0 magnitude back in 1919, roughly within about 20 miles or so of today's events. A little bit further to the east here, 7.2 back in 1970. Up north here, 7.3. So it's, I don't know if we're going to see anything larger out there or not, but they can get rather big up in the 7 range. But it does look like there's been a little bit of time passage here since the last magnitude of a 6 or so in this area. So we'll continue to watch that. Definitely got a lot of aftershock activity occurring within that zone, which is common there for a 6.1. This is showing all the events as well, some 3s and 2s. And some 4s in there being reported by the EMSC. It looks like the largest quake so far, aftershock-wise. Let's go over here. It looks to be a 4.2 according to the USGS. But obviously there's many, many more, and that will continue for a little while, from unless we see something bigger. But again, it's off of the plate boundary. Most of the time we don't get those big mega quakes over here. But it does look like this area can see some low-grade 7.0 magnitude earthquakes. Either way, it's definitely an uptick there for sure. Further out and about, let's see what else we got around the globe here. Still rocking and rolling up there in Russia. Got a number of earthquakes hitting up here. And that, of course, very typical. That will continue for weeks, if not months, down the road here. Looks like about 18 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. And, of course, that's going to bring the total tally there well over about 980 or so. And that includes many of the events that struck in early July, too. Those are basically foreshocks up here, a bunch of 6s and even a 7.4 that struck 10 days prior to the 8.8. But aftershock activity continuing there. The largest so far in the last 24 hours in this region looks to be a 5.3 earthquake striking this morning there. But again, very common to see that amount of aftershock activity from a mega quake. Similar to what we've seen down there in Japan back in 2011. That continued for months on end with larger quake activity. Into the Pacific Northwest here, a number of earthquakes. Got a 2.6 up in Canada, about 5 miles deep or so underneath this area. Mount Rainier, they're showing one earthquake of a 1.8 from yesterday. That's interesting here because it looks like they're, even on a Sunday, they're going back looking at the data from yesterday. So let's go see what's going on there across Mount Rainier ourselves as far as the seismograph stations go here. By the way, tremor activity last night, fairly elevated and drawn out. We'll check on that a little bit later on this evening when that update, when the data comes out. Mount Rainier, Volcano there in Washington, that one earthquake should show up here on the seismograph stations. They're reporting it as a 1.8, about 5:30 or so West Coast time, away from the area. But again, that should show up there. So I want to see, wow, this is today's activity. That's still quite a bit of earthquake movement happening there. Let's go back to yesterday's time. I just want to see if we can spot that earthquake. And again, that was at 1726. So technically, we would be on the next page here, 1726. Right. Guessing it's going to be this one, because I don't see anything else in there. Maybe that's a little bit... yeah, it might be that one. But either way, if you look at this map here, you know, the thought that things are dying down is really not all that accurate. There's still quite a bit of earthquake activity happening out here across Mount Rainier. Localized events. There's numerous events out here. Some of these smaller ones as well. There's probably a good 70 or 80 earthquakes here just on this map, on this graph alone. When you throw in, you know, Saturday, look at all those. But nothing. Let's go back here and check, see what they've reported here. So 8-8, the last earthquake showing up here on Friday. That does not match what is actually happening here. So we'll see if they report back on these Monday morning after their meeting and they get a chance to look at some of these graphs here, because the earthquake activity has not died down like they stated. It may have dwindled off a little bit. Let me show you the comparison last month, okay? We'll compare it. The swarm started on the 8th or so. Here's the 8th. Notice that. Yeah, that's a big cluster, right? We don't have that amount of earthquake activity, but we're still seeing earthquake movement up to this time period. And this lasted, the swarm lasted for, man, decent, like this, clustered for a number of days. And far as I know, their last preliminary report was that there was over 10,000 events. Now, they like to separate what they actually call part of the swarm, that they locate the earthquakes, and events. 10,000, what was the number? Got to go over here to their blog, Seismo blog, and see. 10,834 detection counts. That's how many, technically, how many earthquakes struck. But, you know, they're having some issue accurately locating each event, which is not going to show until they do, or they may not even. But that's a lot of earthquake activity that struck out there. And again, it's continuing to this day, but not as intense. So I do want to point that out. But it's continuing. You know, who knows what the number count is now, because they put out that blog article there a number of days ago, I think about a week ago. So we're probably up in the, who knows, 13,000, 14,000 range or so. And it's still continuing. Let's go ahead and check out Mount St. Helens real quick. They've been having a little bit of activity as well, which I find rather interesting, right up at the summit area. All right, there's the those are the S waves right there from that. I believe it's that 6-pointer that struck in Turkey. It takes a little bit of time for it to show up here, you know, thousands of miles away, all the way around the globe on the opposite side. So, but those S waves will travel to the seismograph stations. There's a number of earthquakes here that I'm seeing. These are the events, really well defined. These other events, I'm not for sure what they are, but definitely looks like there's some earthquake activity out here at Mount St. Helens as well. When we go out back on the previous day, there's a number of events, but nothing, really nothing showing up there at Mount St. Helens. It looks like they reported one from yesterday, little negative 0.2. That's because it's somewhat of a shallower earthquake on the southern area of the volcano. So I guess we'll see. Either way, something I'm going to be watching closely there. Northern California, there's that deep earthquake last night that came in 14 miles deep into the southern end of the Cascadia. There was one more shallower event up around the locked area of the Cascadia subduction zone for a 1.8. Cascadia tremor down here is picked up right here down at the southern end. We got all this tremor activity yesterday, resulting in further earthquake activity up towards the locked area of the southern end of the Cascadia. We're not seeing anything of that nature up north yet, but man, it's definitely starting to fill in quite nicely here. And it's just a matter of time. Who knows when that's going to happen as far as a mega earthquake there along the Cascadia. It could result in a partial, or it could just go ahead and go with a full rupture. Just don't really, we don't know exactly when or what's going to happen, but I do know the amount of time that has passed out here puts us at risk of seeing a mega quake out here at any time, technically at any time here. All right, let's go back here. Bay Area, California. Number of earthquakes out there on the Hayward Fault as well. There's a mosquito in here. Come here. Oh, man. Get out of here. That's going to bug me if it's literally flying right around my monitor screen here. So, all right, go away. Yeah, so the latest one looks like a 1.3, a little bit further up north outside the San Leandro area. But it's still on the Hayward Fault there, so that is another fault system, folks. That's well overdue. This one pretty hazardous as well as it runs through the East Bay, major populated area, and that could be up in the 7 range. The creeping section here of the San Andreas Fault, 2 earthquakes there from yesterday. Nothing showing up today. Extreme Southern California. There's that 1 earthquake yesterday on the San Andreas Fault. Far as today goes, looks like it's fairly just quiet in terms of anything above 2.5. Mostly microquake activity out here. Another area that is got a lot of time pass here. See that? Everything else around the Pacific Plate is moving except for this area of the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate boundary. So eventually, that's just going to fill in here. These are going to read 0, whether it's all at once or maybe sections out here. It's just a matter of time. Up in Wyoming, got a 3.5 early this morning. It looks like about 3 o'clock or so, well south of Yellowstone. Yellowstone National Park up here, super volcano, just a couple smaller quakes. There's a 1.7 showing up there, so I do want to see if there's anything going on up there as far as swarming goes. I don't think that 1.7 is even going to show up on these seismograph stations here. The amplitude is just squashed. I guess it did right here. That was at go back to my map here and see. That was at 6 o'clock this morning, but this one down here was at about 3. So I guess that may be that 6 o'clock earthquake. Nothing big, though. I don't see any major stuff going on there across seismograph stations, but I would like to see these amplified a little bit more so we can kind of see what's going on. These are just, like I say, it's squashed as far as the data goes. All right, let's move on here. See what else we got. This earthquake, by the way, down in southwestern Wyoming. Negative 2.1. So this is pretty much a shallow crustal quake out here. I'm not for sure what the elevation is here, but this could be some type of oil pumping operations out here. These look like, yeah, these could very well be maybe fracking, or is this a wastewater pond up here, it looks like? Anyway, it's out there in that area. Nothing really showing up here on the map far as mentioning the what may be out here far as like oil fields or anything, but there's a little shallow, very shallow crustal quake out there. Texas oil fields in Oklahoma, nothing new, just continuous earthquake activity out there. Nothing being reported across the eastern portion of the country for now. Down across Guatemala, there's that 5.9 from yesterday. A number of aftershocks in there as well, and I'm sure there's more than just 2. EMSC model showing a handful more across that area. 4.4 earthquake, deep, 531 kilometers deep right now, it looks like. That's going to be this quake right here into the Tonga Trench, 330.3. A lot of threes in there. Again, that's into the major subduction zone here called the Tonga Trench, portion of the Kermadec Trench here. Big time subduction zone. Watch for amplified activity back over here. These deeper quakes do tend to add stress across that area. New Zealand, like I said, they're holding on for now as far as any larger movement goes, but do got to watch that. There's a three-pointer, pretty shallow there across North Island. Another 3.5 there across the Turkey area. That should continue for a little while. I don't know if we're going to see anything bigger or not. It's possible. As I showed you guys, there's been some low-grade 7s there historically. But it shouldn't get much bigger than that because it's well off of the plate boundary there. Let's see. Anything major going on out in Hawaii? A couple earthquakes out there in the deeper areas around Pahala, underneath Pahala area. Let's go ahead and check out the data there across Kilauea Volcano. See if anything's changing as far as inflation goes. We just got through with our eruption here a couple days ago. Which is, it looks like it ended there on the 6th or so. That's the eruption. There's the pause right now, continuing to go back up towards our next episode, which should be number 31 here. It's been a rinse and repeat cycle. Pretty crazy to see, but rinse and repeat since December of last year. Episode 31 should come up here in a number of days. We're only about halfway, barely even halfway here in terms of inflation to our last event. There's a decent flare right now. Look at that long duration M flare. That thing, when it expands out like that, that means it's shooting off a massive CME. That is off of the far side region here. Look at that. That is a crazy flare. I don't know if it's popped off a massive CME yet, but it may be in the process of right now. That's way off on the western limb, though, so more than likely will not be geoeffective here to the planet because of that position. But that's been a source here of numerous M flares recently. No X flare activity yet, but goodness. So that's going to be sunspot number 4168. A little visual here. Still shows it on the visible disk. Quite a bit of complexity there. A lot of intermingling here of the colors, indicating that polarity differences. Pretty crazy. We're left here. Well, look at this sunspot kind of popped up here overnight. So going to be this one right here, 4172. That was last night. Look at today's imagery. A lot of growth back here on this side of it. So that could pop off some stronger flaring. Just looking at that. Maybe not as powerful as these over here, but definitely got some chances there, maybe for some M flare activity around this region. This area is starting to grow as well. So, flare threat should remain somewhat elevated there with those two newer areas starting to show some complexity. 55% chance there for M flare. X flare around 10%. A proton event there up around 5% or so. Might see some protons here maybe soon from that massive flare popping off right now. No major roars in the forecast for now. Let's give a quick glance here at the next close approach asteroids. See if there's anything coming in within view. Well, hopefully not within view, but as far as close approach goes. Pretty safe out there. Everything's millions of miles away except for this one here coming in Tuesday, it looks like. A 55-foot house-size asteroid. But even then, that's fairly safe there at that distance. A quick glance excuse me, at the hurricane models here. I want to show you guys what it looks like here today. I'm going to go over to the Atlantic and see if anything's changed since last night. Been watching this tropical system out there coming off the coast there of Africa. It's just forming, and it does take the path here does take it towards the U.S. eastern portion of the country, but uncertainty on how close it's going to get. It does look like it's going to get wrapped up around high pressures here. These two dominant Atlantic high pressures will steer it up and away from the land, it looks like. So that is good news. There's another one behind it. Either way, we do have to watch what comes off here of the Africa coast area. That anything could get directed over this area, but it looks like models right now are in somewhat agreement that it doesn't even get close to the states. But of course, it could change. Definitely could change here. This is around the 16th or so, and we got 6 days before we get to this period. But we'll continue to check back on it. As far as any major severe weather goes today, looks like a slight risk added across Colorado, portions of Kansas and Oklahoma, and northern Texas. Well, panhandle out there around Texas. Little 2% chance for some tornado activity, wind, and a little bit of hail threat out there as well. We're going to be hot out here. It's supposed to be 107, 108 in Northern California, where I live, outside of Chico today. About the same tomorrow, and then a little bit of a cool down. Check out this a symbol here. There's a high pressure parked over the Pacific Northwest. They're cooking up there as well. Maybe not as hot as we are down here in Northern California, but it's baking up there for them. That's going to get replaced with a little trough to the north, bringing average temperatures back down in the low 90s here to Northern California. And man, looks like it. August is a hot month. I'm just ready to see this map loaded up with a lot of blue, because I am a cold weather fan, and the heat and me do not mix. Not anymore. All right, check seismograph stations there. They look pretty quiet for now. We'll definitely watch things, see how it goes. It's another 6-pointer to add to the list of quakes this year. We'll check out tonight, see how that compares to the average number of quakes. Of course, we've seen a lot of 6s up there across that the Russia area with that 8.8 here last month. But anyway, we'll take a look at it, see how it compares. There's the 5.9 in Guam from yesterday. It does look like there was another 5.2 and then a deeper quake into the subduction zone. That's the Mariana Trench right here. That area is a major mega quake producer as well. But for now, just minor to moderate activity along that subduction zone. All right, folks, enjoy the rest of your weekend out here. We'll catch you guys back out here for the Sunday night update. Stay safe and stay cool. Have a good one.